I'd like to call this meeting of the Planning Commission in order. Max, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Ready, begin.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Pahana,
Here.
Vice Chair Walker,
Here.
Chair Krushat,
Here.
all present.
Announcements. These proceedings may be viewed on demand on the City of 29 Palms website at www.29palms.org. You may also live stream this meeting by going to the city website and clicking on the meeting's agenda link. All right. Let's go to the installation of our new planning commissioners.
We're getting our city clerk.
Oh, okay.
Sorry about that. So Jessica and Alex, if you would come here and face this way and repeat after me. So I will say I, and then you state your name, and then repeat everything else after that. Raise your right hand, please. So I
Alex Garcia,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies, foreign and domestic,
against all enemies, foreign and domestic.
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
and I take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I am about to enter.
upon
All right, congratulations.
This is the time for public comments. This is the time for the public to address the Planning Commission on issues within the jurisdiction of the commission that are not on this agenda. All comments are to be directed to the chair of the commission and shall not consist of any personal attacks. Members of the public are expected to maintain a professional, courteous decorum during their comments. There is a time limitation of 3 minutes per person. If you have not already done so, please fill out name, address slips, and give them to the Planning Commission secretary. The Planning Commission is prohibited by the Brown Act from taking action or discussing at length items not included on the printed agenda. Public comments shall be specific, public comments on specific agenda items will be deferred until consideration of the item on the agenda. So do I have any public comments? Do we have any slips? Then I will close public comments. Commission comments and reports of meetings attended. Max, I'd like to start with you.
I have not attended any meetings since our last meeting.
Leslie?
I have not attended any meetings since our last. I did catch up on any of the meetings that I
Okay.
was out for, but I did want to say welcome to our new commissioners. It's great to be whole once again. Look forward to working with you guys and doing our best for the city.
Thank you. And I would also like to say to Mr. Alex Garcia and Ms. Jessica Cure, welcome aboard. I'd just like to give a couple of comments. One thing I've worked on this commission now going over 7 years, and the members of this commission I've been really proud of because they've always come prepared, always have read the staff reports, and our staff does an outstanding job, and so it makes our jobs a little easier. I will remind everybody that the Planning Commission, we don't make law here. We enforce the development code, we enforce the downtown general and specific plans. And so in many cases, our own personal aesthetics on how something should look, we gotta put those in check and kind of just move forward with what the development code says. And that's the only advice I have. And I'm sure we'll get to know each other as we move along and take part in all these events. And that's basically all I had. Set calendar. Has everybody had an opportunity of our commissioners that were here to read the minutes?
Yes.
Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to accept the consent calendar as is.
Okay.
I second.
Roll call vote?
Commissioner Cure? Commissioner Garcia?
Here.
Commissioner Pahana?
Aye.
Vice Chair Walker?
Aye.
Chair Krushat?
Aye.
4-0 approved.
We have no items to be removed. Let's move into public hearings. So I'll turn it over to staff on the off-street parking and loading.
Okay, this is a development code amendment. It's mostly a cleanup and reflection of direction that the commission has given us previously. This is a development code amendment to revise the parking regulations for whether or not a garage requirement is required for single-family dwellings. We are adding some definitions, and we're revising the spaces required in the parking section of the development code to be consistent with the land use tables. A lot of consistency in language that we're striving for. The last time we had a discussion on this subject was in February. And one of the first things we asked is, does the definition, do we need to revisit the definitions? And this is in our staff report. And with all of these study sessions that we're doing, we find that we have several definitions that we need to update. So we'd like to do those in one full swoop when we're done with the study sessions and come back with a development, with the last of the development code amendments. So we're adding, we're fixing the carport definition, and we're adding a public and private garage definition. What we found out, the more we dug into it, is that we needed some clear definitions here. Carport is now defined as permanent structure, not more than 2 sides that are covered. This is reflective of the building code, so we want our development code to be reflective of the building code. And we are separating out public and private. And if you look at the current definitions, there are some changes that need to be made here. The carports, the way we define carport now is covered on not more than 3 sides, and a garage is a fairly loose definition. A building or parking structure or part thereof intended to be used for the parking and storage of vehicles, which is not a very strong definition. So we're adding the public and private definition, and we don't have a garage/public definition at all in the development code. So we're adding that definition. Okay, so this is the direction. These were the subjects from the last study sessions. Do all new residential units need to have a garage, or can parking access be uncovered? At the time, the Planning Commission consensus was that for parking for single-family residences need not be covered. Multifamily shall have covered and uncovered parking, and I'll get into the regulations here in a minute. The structures converted to residential use need to construct a garage. The commission consensus was that covered parking does not need to be replaced upon the conversion of a garage into another use, particularly another dwelling unit or for instance, another bedroom. Do multifamily residential parking spaces need to be contiguous, so that can be uncovered space in a driveway? At the time, commission direction was that uncovered parking spaces for multifamily can be accommodated in the driveway. The reason why we brought this up is that we've had direction in past city council meetings and past administrative directions to us that residential uses needed to have a garage. Times have changed, so we wanted to revisit this issue. This is, in particular, a reflection of the housing element of the general plan. Again, general plans are policy and not necessarily rules. They're not an ordinance. The development code is the ordinance. The general plan is policy. And what it says here in the general plan is that single-family developments are required to have 2 garage spaces for dwelling unit, which is not what the development code says. This is why we've been having some internal consternations about this. This is what the development code says, which I don't believe we're recommending changes, but if the commission wants, we can add some clarification here. So for single-family dwellings, it's 2 spaces per dwelling. It does not say covered or uncovered at all. Multifamily dwellings, it requires 1 covered plus 1 uncovered parking space, at least. We do have a correction in our resolution here. We did make an error. We left some prior language in the resolution when we modified it and edited it, so we're making this correction highlighted in yellow here. And the cross out are the language that we're taking out. It had an erroneous reference to a different portion of the building code, or the development code. And what I'd like to do is show the commission there is some consistency in language here that I'd like to demonstrate when it comes to the parking uses or the parking standards. Currently in the development code, once I can get to it, let's see, what section is it? 1982. This is how the current development code reads. This is pretty general in nature as it's listed. It leads to interpretation on our end. The reason why I say that is because it doesn't quite match the allowable use tables. I'm just bringing out the commercial ones as an example. This is a much more extensive list than the parking, than the uses listed under the parking code. So we're trying to make those lists consistent with each other. So that way there's no discrepancy between what one section of the code says versus the other. So the other item you'll see in the proposed staff report is some cleanup language with regards to the downtown. The downtown specific plan has a provision in here, which was adopted last year, that says in the downtown traditional zone, no off-street parking is required whatsoever in that particular zone. Okay. So what we are showing in the proposed amendment to the development code is a correction of that language, because there are a couple of paragraphs in the development code as it's written that have not been updated since the adoption of the new downtown specific plan. Okay. So with those, that's what the purpose of this is basically a cleanup. And if we need to add some other language in there pertaining to, whether or not it uncovered is fine or whatever the Plan Commission views is appropriate, we can do that at this time. So at this time, we recommend that the project, that you find that the project being the Development Code Amendment is exempt from CEQA. We recommend that you adopt the resolution as we have recommended corrected, and forward the recommendation to the City Council for approval of the Development Code Amendment. And that concludes my presentation.
All right, thank you. Before I open it up to the commission, I'd like to ask our two new commissioners, I don't know if you had the opportunity to actually go through the packet before this meeting. And I would like to open it up to you, that if you would like the opportunity to do that, we can shift this to another meeting. Or if you feel that the briefing or the staff presentation will answer your question, or you can further ask more questions. But I just want to give you that opportunity. So do you feel, go ahead. Yeah.
I read through the packet. I do have some questions.
Okay,
That I
that-
feel confident with
Okay,
once I have more information.
okay. All right, thank you. And Mr. Garcia?
I read through the packet. I also have questions, but I'd like more information.
Okay, no, that's fine. We'll go into that. I just wanted you, if you needed more time to go through the packet, I was gonna open it up for that. And with that being answered, and then I'd like to open questions from the commission. And I'm going to start at this end, and for staff, questions for staff.
For the rest of the time or in between? Okay. As far as the definitions, I think that's clear. What I had a question on is more of the specific plan of not having any parking spaces, and if this is fully, if this is where we're changing that in terms of, because right now there's no parking requirements for anything, whether it's commercial or residential, anything in the specific.
How the downtown specific plan reads.
Okay,
We are not, at this time, we're not proposing changing that language.
anything there, okay.
And, let me bring up, it's not over the entire downtown, it's only over, one particular zone of the downtown. And, so, that to, let me show you. It's in the downtown traditional zone, which is this bright magenta color.
Mm.
If I can turn that really off. It's this bright magenta color. So in this area, no additional parking is required, because the idea here is the downtown provides, in theory, provides enough public parking.
Okay. So we're not deciding on that at all today.
We're not deciding on.
So it's just pretty much exempt from the language that's being approved. Okay,
That's correct.
great.
But I just want to make that clarification. And since the development code references the old downtown specific plan, we need to clean that up.
That's something that needs to change in the future.
Yes.
Great.
All right, thank you. Ms. Pahana?
So we're correcting .41 to 82 in the way that resolution was written?
Yes.
Okay. And changing 19.16 to commercial parking, just have the same language, even though it's commercial parking and 82 is residential?
Yeah,
Or
so
that
that,
you just
yeah.
want them to say the same?
Yeah, because we're trying to be consistent in the language between one section of the code and the other.
Even though one's residential and one's commercial?
Yes.
That was all that I had. Yeah, that was all that I had.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
thank you. Max, do you have any questions for staff?
No, I don't have any questions.
Okay. Mr. Garcia, any questions for staff, please?
That actually answered both the questions I had. So thank you.
Okay.
And I have no questions for staff, because thank you, you answered them before the meeting started. What I would like to do now is open it to public comment at this time. If anybody from the public would like to come up and address this issue on the changes to the off-street parking and loading.
I just need some clarity on that single-family home. Are you still to build a two-car garage or a carport, two-car carport?
The way the ordinance is written and the direction we're given from the plan commission right now is neither are required. Just 2 spaces.
So you just need 2 spaces. If I'm building a single family residence, I just need two spaces, and it can be open air.
That's the
Yes.
way. That's the direction that the commission's given us.
Thank you. Thank you.
And just for some clarification of, we're kind of heading in that direction because we know that housing is an issue. Building a 2-car garage adds to the expense of a single-family residence. And is it really necessary if you have the parking? And if you prefer not to have a garage, I don't think why, the feeling was, why should we force that upon somebody? And in this way, we kind of reduce construction costs. It would help, and that's kind of was our reason behind that. Thank you. Do I have any other comments from?
Hello, everyone. I just have a question. I came in a couple minutes late. I guess it's more of a statement. Did you take into consideration the restriction? It doesn't sound like it's going to apply if we're not requiring parking, but SB, 2097 restricts the requirement of parking structures if it's within like a half a mile of some sort of like major transit, which we don't obviously have like a speed line or anything like that, but I guess it's more of a statement that as that gets worked up, if that's something that that overlay comes into play more for the residential area that's within a half mile, which I would assume Adobe and near Freedom Plaza would apply. So I was look into that, Keith.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other public comments? Okay.
Good evening. So I know when we spoke about this before, on the commercial aspect of carports, garages, parking spaces for multifamily properties, are we addressing that tonight? Are we going to be? Are we going to require that?
No, that's not specifically addressed on, this is only the cleaning up of off-street parking and loading. It does talk about and defines what a garage has to have. Keith, why don't you,
Yeah. So where
where
So-
will that be addressed?
Right. So currently, what it shows in the development code is multifamily dwellings requires 1 covered space per dwelling unit. It doesn't mention garage or carport. It just says covered,
Okay, covered. That's good though.
and 1 open space or 1 uncovered parking space.
I think the point that was brought up was that it wasn't all going off street.
Yeah, this
So
is all
that's
off
good.
street.
So that already covers that.
Mhm.
Awesome.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, at this time, then I'll close public comments. And bring it back to the commission. Does anybody have any further questions? Okay. Do I have a motion?
I'll bring up the actual motions here. There we
Okay.
go.
I'll make a motion that that we find the project exempt from CEQA, adopt the resolution, forward a recommendation of the city council for approval to the development code amendment.
And second.
I'll second.
I have a motion and a second. Roll call vote.
Commissioner Kier,
If you agree that in accepting.
Aye.
Commissioner Garcia,
Aye.
Commissioner Pahana,
Aye.
Vice Chair Walker,
Aye.
Chair Krushat,
Aye.
5-0 approved.
Okay, and we'll move to, I don't have any discussion and potential action items. Community Development Director updates, please.
I actually have one.
Okay, good standing.
So it's been a while since I've done this, but we actually have an administrative use permit that is ready to be decided upon by the community development director, me. So I'm scheduling a decision on July the 3rd, which is in 2 weeks or less than 2 weeks, for the following. It's for an addition to the medical building at the existing facility at Split Rock Avenue. 4,900 square feet. Here's the property. Approximately there is where the addition would be. There is the site plan for it. And the way administrative use permits function is that we announce it publicly at the Planning Commission and we advertise it publicly in the paper and to the surrounding property owners. And if no one objects, then the decision will be made on July the 3rd. If anybody wants to have this heard before the full commission as a public hearing, then we will schedule it. Otherwise, the decision will be made on July the 3rd.
It's, the setback from the wash is enough?
Yes.
Okay.
It's been reviewed by the city engineer, and we've gone back and forth with road dedications and setbacks and parking and all of that. So that is planning commission. That is the planning director update. So
Okay.
Unless one of the commissioners wants to have a hearing on this, the decision will be made on July 3rd.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the commission concerning this project? Okay, then. I'd like to then move into our study session, and if we could have Vino and Miss Andrea Keller, is she here? Come forward, huh? So Vino.
Okay, so
And for our audience, this is a study session on the homeless and housing committee. And
Right.
Keith, I'll turn it over to you. And
So we, this is actually very perfect timing. I couldn't have done it better. We have the Hope team from the county sheriff here to give a presentation and talk to us. And they are here from 5:30 until 6 o'clock. Is that correct? Hope, yep.
please come forward and a presentation. Do we have it?
Did you guys have a presentation or just here for questions or?
So I was just gonna, I could go over some statistics and whatever
Please do.
questions you
Oh,
guys
thank you.
may have.
Yeah, please do.
Please do.
I don't.
All right, am I on?
All right, hello, I'm Brandon DeVault. I am one of the representatives of the San Maria County Sheriff's Department's Homeless Outreach Proactive Enforcement Team. Today, in the audience, we have Probation Officer Whitworth, Deputy Cyril Bolag, Deputy Eric Rogers, and our Sergeant Ken White. So we're a team of 4. We work throughout the regions. We're not assigned specifically to any given station. Today we're here. Last Friday we were Chino Hills. Tomorrow we're Rancho, and then the next day we're up in the high desert. So there's only 4 of us. We'd like there to be more, but the problem is some of the services, right? We don't have a lot of services. We pass up folks every single day. So as an advocate, for you folks, services are what we need. We especially need them up here in the Morongo Basin area. We get a lot of folks that are up here. I want to say last time we did an operation, come up and offer folks housing, and we actually had 2 or 3 people that would have met housing requirements, but they didn't want to leave the basin. That's difficult for us, right? Because you see the senior out there, they want the service, you know they need the service, they don't meet criteria for 5150 or gravely disabled, but then again, it's a senior on the street, they shouldn't be out there. They don't want to leave the basin. So if that's something that you guys can advocate for us, is finding a provider that is willing to take on more of a housing role or to look into funding for a housing role up here, that's something that we could use. A little bit about us. So we are a four-man team. We go throughout the county. Our goal is to contact folks that are looking for services for the unhoused population. We are a non-confrontational team, therefore we don't make any arrests if we don't have to. We're not there to run people. We're not there to scare them off. We have a relationship built with these folks since 2014. As a HOPE team as itself, we've made approximately 20,000 reoccurring contacts. We've assisted over 6,500, referred 9,500, and as of today, we've housed 2,981 folks due to providers. Without the providers, we couldn't place into housing. So in 29 Palms itself, we have a total, and on this total, this isn't a total number of individuals. This is actually a total number of reoccurring with individual. Since 2017, we've contacted a total of 178. We've assisted 20 with assists, 99 referrals were given, 1 housed in 29 Palms, 9 veterans and 6 family. So for this calendar year to date, the HOPE team has contacted 72 folks, 72 different contacts, 46 individual folks, 10 were given assistance, 43 referred, 12 persons who are homeless had an income over 800. Chronic homeless was 14. So the chronic definition being homeless for a year or more on the street with a disabling factor. So whether it's drugs, alcohol, mental health, physical health is how we get that definition. And then veterans 3 and then families 4. For us, we don't always have a house number. Housing is a hard number for us to come up with unless we directly transport them to a service. But once we give somebody a referral, we really very rarely know if they got an assist unless the agency reaches out or the individual reaches out. So we know that a lot of our numbers, we would have more assisted, more housed, but we don't get to know due to HIPAA and some other things. The families is a huge thing. We are seeing an uptick this year in families, and this is with either a mother with children under age of 18 or mother and father or the other. Families have spiked. Seniors have spiked since COVID. We know that average rent, especially like I'll say in San Bernardino, the average rent now is $1,400 to $1,600. With the poverty level and the amount of folks that are the seniors that are living on fixed incomes, their checks aren't even making it to that minimum rent. So we are getting a lot more seniors. So that is what we're seeing. Do you folks have any questions for us?
Questions?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So when you say housing and resources and the maybe the lack of wanting to go outside of the Morongo Basin, I guess to like help meet you at what you guys are working so hard at, are you asking for more of like a transitional housing, kind of like Banning, for example? Like what are you looking for, like doctors or full-time, like we're talking about full-on facilities? We got to like encourage people up here.
There's different opportunities, right? Like one of the things that we see that are in successful communities is like Project Home Key. Project Home Key, there's actually dollars available where they're doing small projects, so they're actually taking an old motel and they're revamping that motel into small projects. I believe Redlands was one of the most recent. Theirs is a large scale. I mean, you guys could obviously scale that down, but there is money for that. Morongo Basin Arch is big with us. When the folks are out here and we know that the person needs a service and Morongo Basin Arch might be able to assist them, we do reach out to Morongo Basin Arch, so thank you for them. But more of like some small transitional things. Like right now we have a few folks that could go to a motel, but it seems like there's a lot of motels that are willing to accept some of the voucher systems, even if it's for a few weeks. Maybe some ease in some of those motels. Maybe you folks can reach out to them and try to help us that way. Even when it comes to somehow finding other providers that would step up to assist with some kind of housing.
Just to touch on what the officer said, in regards to the motels housing, I think the city council had given staff directions to see how we can look into an ordinance where the motels can take in these folks, and as long as the motels or hotels happen to service the rooms on a weekly basis, and they are paying for the utilities, then the tenant cannot claim 30-day tenancy that you have to evict me. So probably staff can give you some of the direction, which way they're heading with that.
So for us, when it comes to homelessness, right, it's not an easy fix. For law enforcement, when we get a call for service as a regular deputy sheriff, you're there to fix a call, right? We show up, people expect something to change. We do get a lot of constituents reaching out to us. They're upset, especially up here. They feel like some of the community has enabled. They feel like no one really cares. Their voice isn't heard. But for us, it's not an easy fix, right? So one, you have the drugs, alcohol, mental health. Then you have the person who wants the assistance, that you have no assistance. So if someone wanted drug and alcohol treatment today, I couldn't get them in today. For us, they go through SARC. There's a process to that. There's a screening to that. And that could be anywhere between tomorrow and maybe the next 45 days, and hopefully that doesn't time out and their assessment has to be redone. So we do have that, right? You have folks that want the services, but it's being able to catch the person at the right time to get that service, and then you have the folks who are service resistant, probably because of drugs and alcohol. Yeah, so it's not an easy fix for law enforcement, but again, that's where this comes in, more of a long-term approach. When we're out there, we do take a survey, we talk to folks, we enter them into the 211 system, so that way, when a provider does reach out and they say, hey, we have 20 bed openings, and they reach out to 211, our names are there in the forefront, and just like anyone else, we're contacting them on a regular basis. You have inroads out here, contact them on a regular basis, and we can advocate for those folks to get permanent supportive housing beds.
If you don't mind me asking a question, have you worked with the different faith communities in the Morongo Basin and 29 Palms?
We have.
And how does that work?
So the faith-based communities, I know our partners have reached out, especially during times of like emergency assistance. Some of the feeding programs and stuff like that is where we've reached out.
Yeah, I know it's a little premature, but there are some recent state laws that encourage local jurisdictions to allow for small homes on within places of worship as well, or on the
Correct.
properties of places of worship.
Yep. I want to say somewhere in Victorville. I don't have it, but I could get it back to you folks. I want to say somewhere in Victorville might be looking into that already, or maybe I think it's Victorville.
Have you seen any success with? Are you familiar with how that works, or have you seen any success with that?
I have not seen it firsthand, no, but I have read about it, and it does look successful. It seems like a lot less red tape.
Just one quick question. You talked about people that are resistive to the help. You know, they basically choose to stay where they're at, whether it's mental issues or drugs and alcohol. Do you know what percentage was there a percentage, or could you say what a percentage was?
You know,
Less than 1 in 10?
I'd say yes.
Okay.
So I don't want to give a number on that.
Okay.
Unless I look at my stat, but I will say this. A lot of folks, they become service resistant, from what I have seen, due to broken promises.
Okay.
So, and I'm not blaming any group, I'm just gonna give an example. So, say you have a church group, they come out and they make friends with somebody and they say, hey, I'm gonna help get you off the street. Well, nothing happens. Then you have the next provider, they came out, how am I gonna get you off the street? And they realize the system's broke and there's nothing. So for us, we make no promises. When we go out there, we explain to them, hey, I'm not promising you anything. I'm just here to try to link you into the system. And again, it's not blaming any particular group. I just think that folks don't know how to navigate the system, and when they try, they run into a dead end, they get frustrated.
Okay. Thank you.
I'd like to, this is a new committee, you know, so one of the things we're really interested in is gathering data. Figuring out exactly who is here, what are the numbers, families, children, all the people. I mean, we have stats about the various categories, and that's something I've been researching for this committee. But I'd love to know the facts on the ground here.
Absolutely.
In 29. And one of the things we'll be looking at is different levels of solutions, from the very temporary and kind of emergency shelters to long-term affordable housing to meet this community's needs. So
Okay.
I think, but starting, I don't know what form that takes to have information sharing.
Yeah. So we have no problem as a sheriff's department. I'm providing these statistics to you. I can also send you folks an email of what our current stats look like, but the ones I have, I actually pulled this morning. So this year to date, so it was from yesterday, from the 19th of 22 to today, we have contacted 46 unique individuals. We do have stats on drugs, alcohol, mental health, but that's all self-admitted. If they don't tell us, we don't put it. We have found that approximately 60-something% of what we have are mental health, but when it comes to coupled with mental health and they've been on the street for a given time, you're probably in the 90s. But I have no problem, ma'am, if I exchange information when we're done, I can get you an email back.
That'd be great. Thank you very much.
Let me just give some numbers from the time we had the last meeting.
You got your,
Okay, so basically I actually spoke to Jen from Art, and she told me there's about 100 single people that are homeless. There's about 30 couples, and there's about 55 people with families and kids. So that number is plus minus 180. So from the last meeting that we had, I had been doing some research, getting some of the numbers within the company.
The question I have is, you said 60% and then it becomes 90%. So how long, what's the time frame in which someone becomes in-house
So I'll give an example. You yourself become homeless today. You're a female. And you're out into the community and you start getting scared because other homeless individuals are near you. You're newly to homeless, right? And you move next to the gentleman here for a little bit of sense of security. You never had a drug and alcohol problem. You're with him for a while. You're by him. He has some parties, some people over. Maybe he gives you some alcohol. Maybe he's like, hey, maybe you should try a little hit of meth. And eventually you give in because it's your sense of security. Now you're addicted. We see that a lot, where you start getting depression. You're out here, it's not fun. You'd rather be somewhere else. A lot of these folks have kids, right? A lot of them have kids, a lot of them have grandparents, a lot of them have parents that if they could just get their life back, they could figure it out. But because they were here after a period of time, that depression, that onset depression starts to set in, or maybe they already had a bit of mental health and now it's starting to trigger, and then it becomes a co-occurring disorder.
So is there, I mean, in terms of that time, that little bit of time, I'm interested in knowing how quickly some of that turnaround, like is there opportunity in that time frame to
Yeah.
support before it gets to that?
That's a good question. I can definitely research that. I will say statistics have shown that a person is very likely to come out of homelessness within the first year and not remain. Once the person remains, typically that's when you'll start seeing more of an onset of mental health and drug and alcohol use.
Do you think that if it was like more well known of an established program, that person wouldn't necessarily befriend, they would maybe go to that resource?
Yep. So going to the resource is a big thing, but the problem is your distance. So your distance to providers. Folks that are in 29 this is you have a unique stretch here. I'll use somewhere else for example, like the folks from Loma Linda will stay in Loma Linda. The folks that are from San Bernardino will stay. There's always a myth that if you build it, they'll come. We have not seen that. Dealing with homelessness for 10 years, we have not seen that. They don't typically migrate. They try to stay within their community. So if you don't have a service next to them, they're not going to travel, which is one of the reasons why Inroads was created. It's a behavioral health team that has a deputy sheriff and drug and alcohol specialist, peer and advocate, aging adult protective services, and a nurse through public health. And their goal is to go out into the community and they provide stabilization. So the folks that you see out here walking around talking to themselves, the ones that are super resistant to change, the ones that the HOPE team typically engages with, but they're not willing to take a service because of an extreme drug, alcohol, mental health, or a senior, they're scared to take it. This team will come out and meet with them weekly or bi-weekly or sometimes a couple times a week, which Inroads is out here usually once to twice a week. And they meet with those folks to stabilize them, get them to their appointments, get them back on their meds. Once they're ready, they give them back to the HOPE team, and our job is to try to find housing for them. So
Okay.
Inroads was created for stabilization.
Okay.
so you made the comment, if we build it, that doesn't necessarily mean they'll come. The facility we have out in Joshua Tree, is that, we're not at 100%, or
Your facility, sir?
the facility we have out in Joshua Tree, that's for
The behavioral health, they just built it. I think it only has like 40 beds and it's outpatient.
Okay, so behavior, if it's an outpatient, that's different. So behavioral health, you gotta remember, it's, unless you guys have specific terms of behavioral health, right, it's a county served program. A lot of these programs that come with dollars, they have to serve county-wide. They can't just serve the Morongo Basin unless the funding comes a specific way, which is above my head. But you folks might even be able to put some type of terms on it. But there is a belief that, hey, if we build this type of thing, we're gonna get all the homeless, Folks don't wanna migrate, they wanna stay within their communities.
Yeah. Do I have any more questions? Please.
Do you have? It seems like a lot of people have an issue with trying to get their social security cards back, their birth certificates, and you need one or the other to obtain the other. Do you guys have any resources for anything like that?
So we do. We actually have vouchers that are on us on the truck all the time. We got ID vouchers. We give those. We do have birth certificate vouchers. We even have a jail program called START. And if the person was born out of county, the START team about once a week to every other week will actually go into like LA and Orange County and whatnot. And if we have folks that are on the street that can't get over there and get them, we can actually have them sign the waivers, and then our deputy sheriff can actually pick them up for us, and we can deliver them back into the field. And it's a good program, right? So that part's free, social security card's free, their ID is free. But what some folks run into, we actually have some folks that are actually truck drivers, but I can't give them an ID if they have a driver's license or a valid driver's license because it'll cancel the other out. So I got to make sure too at the same time that, you know, there's no funding out there to pay for a driver's license, but I can get a free waiver for an ID. Yep.
Do I have any more questions for? Okay. Well, thank you very much. And yes, use your card.
Yep.
I mean, and I'd like to reiterate that as the Planning Commission, I mean, we have no budget authority. We have no ability to change ordinances, but what we do have the ability is to make recommendations to our city council. And I think that that's one of our purposes here. And I'd like to further define before we get to the end of the meeting of some of the agenda items that we'd like to work on in the next few weeks.
I totally agree with that, and I
Yeah.
think one of the, and I'm going to bring this up next, is identifying what resources are available to the city. Whether we may not know of some, and I think this has been an invaluable discussion already, at least in my professional view. I mean, just learning what sort of resources are available and what recommendations we can make to the city council. I think we have to start somewhere, and understanding the scope of this problem.
So continuing, I'm sorry, you want?
Any other questions? We're good?
No, I don't have a question. I just,
Thank
from
you.
our committee, our
Thank you
working
very
group.
much. I just wanted to add that I'm working on a list of resources from federal to state to local. Thank you very much.
That actually happens to be next on discussion point that I was going to bring up.
Okay,
Okay.
good.
So I've been working on a list. This is a huge topic, obviously. And so I wanted to present an outline because I think we need to start with an outline. And as we started questioning, we don't yet have goals. And I think we have to start with, there's a strategy at the base of this. And that stems originally from, the mission of 29 itself. Like, what are the specific goals for the city ultimately, whether that's 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, and then work from there, because there's a lot of programs, there's a lot of avenues, there's many types of homelessness, there's many types of solutions from these temporary shelters, which can be very expensive per bed to maintain and require a lot of work. Ultimately, the goal may be to get the biggest number of people into affordable housing. And that if you have, and there's programs also for affordable housing, kind of dovetails into this, for veterans, there's tons of resources available. So I think a global picture, because it's not as simple as recommending one type of solution,
Yes.
right? So one project home key, if it's a shelter, where can people go from there? If it's temporary and transitional, that might pull a lot of resources and isn't a permanent solution. So I'm going to actually give you a packet which has all of the resources linked, and that's something I thought I would have time to put that in an email to you, and I did.
Well,
but
that's okay. We
wasn't it?
can put that on the screen for next time.
Okay.
And
No, I
just
would love
email it to me.
to present. And then also I have, images of the various types of solutions. There are solutions where they take a commercial building and put up 6-foot-high walls and get a lot of beds. You can just get people off the street right away. That's very short term. Project Home Key is another thing. I'm personally involved in a Project Home Key in El Monte, converting about 200 rooms to family shelters. It takes a lot of work and administrative power to run those projects. So we were talking about a smaller project. It may not be worth it to do a smaller one once you see how much work it takes to actually do this. Because yes, you're getting millions of dollars from the state, but it's also met with a lot of work on the local level. So I can speak to that a bit as having been on those teams. And I think, the bigger thing, kind of the light at the end of the tunnel, is if affordable housing can be done, whether that's through adaptive reuse, it's for new modular construction. I'm also interested in build your own. I know there's some interest for that in City Council, helping people to build their own small homes and creating pathways towards home ownership or, apartment ownership in 29 at an income level that, isn't gentrification, that's really taking care of the needs of the city. So
I'm
Lots
going
of
to
questions.
encourage the two fine people to my right here to really come to our Planning Commission, I believe on the 18th of July, because there's some recent state laws that pertaining to housing that we will be introducing. I can't go into detail here, but just giving you a heads up.
Keith, I just already have a trip planned, so on the 18th, I'll just have to miss that. But just to touch base on what Andrea said and what the officer was saying, putting a different cap on as a broker, I actually also have done many projects like what Andrea is working on. And the shortest and quickest way is to take the older hotels and convert them. Those kind of programs can take anything between 6 to 9 months compared to when you start to build something from ground up, can take you anything between 5 to 7 years. By the time you go through planning, you get the bids, until you put the first bid. So I think we need to look at those kind of alternatives. And what it does, it actually helps the city as well. Let's just use some hypothetical numbers. Let's say we find an old hotel that's paying property tax on maybe $3 million. And now, when we take out the rooms off the market, somebody sees an opportunity to come and build another hotel, it'll cost them $20 million. So now the city gains on the property tax being paid on $20 million. So we have to get a little bit, creative and see how we can use resources and take out the obsolete, cater for the people that's in need, and bring in newer stuff. Thanks.
I wanted to add really quickly too, with the hotel conversions, home key does take longer than a straight affordable conversion. So it could be that that's another avenue to look at, is turning existing hotels into affordable housing, both as efficiency units or two of them being combined. And what could happen if it's couples living in it, like what number of people could you house? So I'll give a full presentation with PowerPoint at our next meeting.
I see somebody having to kind of lead the charge on that project. I like the idea of a commercial building, because I've seen there's a few commercial buildings. I don't know what the cost of converting those into a livable housing space, but I think we need to, and I guess my question to Keith is, how much can we do as a city? Now, I know as a city, we're running about a $8 to $11 million budget, and our surplus is running about, do we still have one? About 8?
I'd have to double check.
And I don't know what
that.
I
I don't
and
have it off
I'm
the
not,
top of
and
my
I'm
head.
not sure what the I like the ideas of things that follow along the lines of Habitat for Humanity. If the city bought the land, could we then, based upon need, provide a construction site for projects like that to start with? And that's my question.
Right, and to reemphasize your point, this committee is here to advise the city council as to what can be done
Yeah,
in the city.
yeah.
So, and that limits the scope a little bit, and that may sound a little frustrating, but we only have a certain amount of resources and power and geography. So,
In the purpose of casting our goals forward, could we ask them at the next meeting, like what their goals are, so that we are actually in tune with what they're wanting to do. Not
That's
to
a very
throw
good
it back
point.
on them, but to say like, is it to delve into these projects where we're bringing everything to 29, or is it more or less like, where can we better use our resources shared across the state?
Would something to the along the lines of like a mission statement
More-
of this body
That'd be a good
appropriate?
start for sure.
Okay.
Or just like, if you hear an opinion of each one, and maybe one's like, I really want to focus on the feeding, I really want to focus on the housing, I really want to focus on the mental, or, you know, just kind of gauging. Or is
And-
that like assumed?
And something tangible sells a lot. I mean, it's
Yeah.
I just want our
tangible and
efforts.
measurable
Yeah.
is easier than not just like, oh, we're gonna.
But I know we're super clever, and we can come up with something that we can present to them that maybe they're not even thinking of, that we could just, not surprise them, but just more or less just kind of go,
No.
hey, we took this and here's a lot of options. One might be super costly, one's probably going to be maybe less preferred, but doable.
I can present a matrix of options and kind of an estimate of costs, so you can see what these various types of structures might cost to initially convert, and then also the carrying cost of that. So kind of what the burden would be on the city going forward for each of these. And I do think, given, and a lot of municipalities have done great things. I don't think we need to invent new things, but I love this, build your own. We can really take the best practices from around the world, and there's some great examples. Like there's a community like Union Station in Pasadena has an incredible program, but they also need a lot of grants and donations to make it pencil. So there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle. So to the extent that I can provide you with the pieces so that a strategy can be made, and I think the best thing to do is make a strategy before jumping into implementing little pieces.
Yeah, I think that's good, and I
So-
think cost is what's going to speak most to how we can tackle it.
And
I think also, sorry. go
Oh,
ahead,
no,
Joe.
I'm sorry. And I do see this as a two-tiered project, and it's been brought up. I know the city is looking at affordable housing as far as, and I don't know where we are on that project, but I know that that's 4 and 5 years down the road. And the other concern I have is, it's like, yeah, affordable housing is good, but we still have to have a way for these people to afford even that housing. And we need to look at that. Yeah, and I'd like to walk away from this meeting with at least 1 or 2 items that say, okay, these are the action items we're going to do for the next one. And that's what I want. Vino, please, go ahead.
I think most cities might have a problem that if I build it, they'll start coming. The advantage that we have in our city is we'll take care of the people in our community that's homeless. We don't have public transport like trains. We're not right off the freeway. If somebody comes on the 10, they're going to take almost an hour before they come to 29 Palms Highway and public transport. And the best thing is we have extreme weather. You either can stick with the heat, stick with the cold, or you'll move out. So that's the advantage we have. But the biggest advantage on what Andrea was saying is that if you look at new costs, and I think Jim also touched on it, the cost of building those units are anything between $275,000 to $400,000. Whereas if you do an adaptive reuse, it'll be like $175,000, $180,000. In 6 to 9 months, we can do it. The other problem we're taking, commercial buildings is you have to give each individual their own bathrooms. If you don't provide their own bathrooms, then you're actually creating havoc. What I've experienced when I first came into this country and I used to manage places like that, it was a major havoc.
Right, or staff to
staffing
maintain
to maintain.
security, yeah.
I don't know if anyone likes homework, but I'm happy to send this presentation this week if anyone wants to read through with all the resources. Okay, so I'll pre-send it. I'll send it to Keith.
And that's
okay.
yeah. Let's do that. I think one of the action items is just like what you're doing with the research, is identifying available resources that we can utilize.
I think in secondary, I think all of the new programs that are getting implemented on the state level, which is what you said is next, right? That's on the 18th. Okay. Because some of that is the commercial adaptive reuse, right?
There's a whole bullet point. Again, I can't get into it a whole lot right now, but there's a wide variety of things, and we'll and to the chairman's point, we'll give you the draft ordinances well in advance so you can study it, as opposed to the Wednesday or Thursday before the next meeting. I listened to you.
Well, I just like to have a little time to go, you know. I don't like to feel rushed. Yeah. Presentation of facilities.
No, I have them.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. You have a lot of knowledge, and it brings a lot to the committee. So I really appreciate all of that. Yeah, thanks for joining. You know.
I'm really eager to help. And nothing would make me happier than to just have, hope everyone can feel very well informed and just smart and resourceful and just making the most with the least.
Yeah, when I was asking the officer about, like, if it was just known, like maybe in the way of like wayfinder signs or just something that this community spoke to that so much that it was like, if you're here in 29, oh, they can get you buckled up real quick with these programs, and to where they wouldn't have to feel that need to struggle or hide, or, you know, if we created that and it wasn't like behind AutoZone, and it was just more like, oh, you know, we can help them. Here's how we help them. And it was maybe that kind of culture we could create. Maybe it could almost like be so positive to change.
I'm also curious, almost in like a user satisfaction of, you know, anyone who's unhoused, if they have used local services, I'd love to know what their opinion was. Did it meet their needs? Did it make things worse? Did it just extend a problem? Because they are getting some assistance, and that might sound strange, or I don't know if that's even possible to implement, but in any other industry, you would find out what the customer needs.
Mm-hmm.
And so to the extent that that's even possible.
Like a Survey Monkey or
Yeah,
something.
something where there can be some gathering of information to see what they really want, and if they have had experiences, you know, how that went.
Yeah, I'm sure a survey's the last on their mind when they're trying, but I do, I think it'd be valuable to get that information too.
Well, and I think we also have on-hand experience with especially with our code enforcement team, as to what programs are helpful and which ones seem helpful at the beginning and may not be as helpful. So I think we can outline some of those as well.
Yeah.
It's like, you know, we tried this and it didn't work, or
Yeah, and sometimes it's like, you guys, to everybody's point, it's not one thing fills the need for everything. Like that might have worked for that particular couple in that situation or that family. So it's still good to just continue to pour those out, because one might not work for the other, and they might prefer the less hands-on and okay, just go on this website and fill this out, and I'm getting all my stuff that I need, or, you know, just, it's got to, you know, putting ourselves in their shoes, like, it's just what could we do to make it work?
Just to recap real quickly, I'm seeing a couple of things for our next meeting is that we'd like Andrea, you're going to do the presentation on resources available.
Yes.
And then I know we want to narrow our objective of this committee, because we want to bring something tangible to our governing body, city council, and say, okay, here's what we've looked at, and here's what we think is doable, which is getting back to narrowing our objectives. And then I think we also need to look at what immediate needs we can hit for the homeless. I mean, we talked previously at the last meeting about the shower point. Is that still a consideration?
that's next. No, it's not my next one.
Well, okay, I'll let you go. Okay, I'm sorry, I don't want to steal your thunder. Go ahead.
You guys are really good at getting ahead. Or either that or meeting in mind. Okay, so mobile showers, we did, Pastor Mike Matty who's proposing this, is not available tonight, and would like to do the next meeting. So he'll be giving us more information.
I did also research, there's many types of shower trailers, so there's a whole world of this, just so everyone knows everything about this issue.
The county does an annual point-in-time count, and they may have, a survey is involved with that count. So they will have information, they generally publish it in the summer, based on the answers to those questions. I can tell you, I think that they had 6 homeless individuals this year that were willing to participate in that survey.
Still feedback.
I believe they only counted like 8 total.
I think the biggest issue is the relations that we have with the houseless out here. I think our greatest strength is the fact that we are a small community. I was talking to, I think, Wayne Hamilton a few months before they do the counts to see who's actually out here. The hardest thing is trying to get them just to trust us. I personally just do a lot of outreach, but just actually going out there like giving them resources that they need temporarily, building those relationships and showing that we aren't just people who are just trying to, we're not trying to temporarily fix everything, and actually give them actual resources and actually show that they're people and we care about them. It goes a long ways, and I think that would actually, having more people to actually go out there and talk to these people would be extremely helpful, because my relationships with them are very strong. I care about a lot of them. So, I mean, and they know I do care. And I tell them all the time I can't really do much more than what I give them. But, you know, it's really exciting to see what you guys are doing. This is awesome. Thank you. So, anyways.
Next item.
Next item is the schedule. We have, I believe, Leslie was not here last time. We've got 2 new members of the commission here. I wanted to revisit how often this body, as the Homeless and Housing Committee, could and should meet. There's been a variety of whether it's once every other month, once a quarter. Last time it was decided that once a month was sufficient, at least for now.
Okay.
I wanted to ask that question again, now that we have new members on board, and see what the consensus was for the frequency of meeting.
I think that the fact that there's more resources going to be available and different ordinances in which we need to use for creating affordable housing based on the state, that there's actually a lot of work just on that side of it. So to me, I think once a month is good, and even just on that piece of it, the community outreach and all the health and wellness pieces seems like I feel like there's 2 pieces to it. So to me, once a month.
I feel like if we establish our goals, that would more or less put us on like a path. If we're trying to like tackle something, is waiting a month okay? I don't know. I'm okay with once a month, but I guess I just don't know if once a month is waiting too long, or are we missing out on a deadline, or are we not going to get the grant in, or I'm a little bit nervous that if we're just doing it once a month, like what are we doing? Like, as far as like what is the goal of each meeting, and we're just going to talk about next time the mobile shop, like what are we doing? Like I just
Well-
Something more tangible. Yeah,
Well,
understood.
Let me just throw my 2 cents in. I mean, when we attach this on the end of a regular planning commission meeting, I would be okay with if we have a regular planning commission meeting and just have one meeting set aside where it's just the working group. We start at 5 o'clock and then go through that. I don't know if that satisfies the requirement. Is that possible?
You lost me there. So
He means
Okay,
like on
so
a
I mean, we take care of, during one meeting, we take care of planning commission business.
like we did today.
Right, and rather than just trying to tack this meeting on to the end, we have one planning commission meeting where it's nothing but the working group. It's the working group. And then you have a lot more time, you've got a little bit longer agenda, but, you concentrate that meeting on those issues. Otherwise, I see us either meeting on another day of the week, which is possible. I'll leave that up. I'm opening that up for suggestion.
I just want to, are you saying that you want to have one planning commission meeting a month and one homeless committee meeting a month? I'm
For
not
now,
sure what you're
yes, I would basically be saying that. I don't know if we can get all the planning commission work done in one meeting, but possibly.
Some of that's a little unpredictable because
Yeah,
we have
that's what I'm
applications
saying,
come in
is-
and
I would
this and that.
definitely suggest that we leave planning commission as its own thing. That needs to run on the 1st and 3rd. If we got stuff, that needs to be the same. The committee this worked out perfect today,
Yeah.
but it's not always going to be like that.
I know.
And so I like the suggestion of if it was like on like the next day or a Wednesday or that Thursday or however we want to do it. If we push it, imagine if we had a planning commission meeting that just ended. Like I want the enthusiasm for this to continue into the next meeting, not just, we have another meeting at 6:15. Like it's got to be purposeful.
I also like what Jim Jessamine suggested, that we leave the planning commission meeting one side, this one, we do it on another day. And I like what the Assistant Commissioner suggested, that we do it once a month. In that way, we can do our research, absorb what was said, but we have to set goals. Hey, this is the direction we're moving on, and let's
Yep.
kick that ball towards that goal post.
Okay, yeah, let's do once a month, and if we're like, we need to meet a lot sooner, then we'll just revisit next meeting.
So when we say
Yes.
once a month, it's a meeting that's maybe not on a Tuesday, maybe not on a regular planning commission day, but we get together on a Thursday, Friday, once a month, just to
Friday.
do the homeless and housing committee meeting. Is that what I'm hearing? I don't know.
If there's a
We haven't
need
decided.
to, there's a goal we have to accomplish by August 15th, and we feel there's a need to have 3 meetings or 4 meetings before that August 15th deadline, I think we should be able to do that. But I do agree that once a month, not on a planning commission day, is probably the way to make this its own thing, and that's the purpose of coming here that day, is to talk about the homeless committee. That's the purpose for that day.
Well, let me ask the members of the commission. So you're saying you're going to volunteer 2 days a week to?
I volunteered a bunch of days for the
9 meetings.
Airbnb committee.
9 meetings for months.
9 meetings for months. I'm
9
okay
meetings
with
a
it.
month.
We
To
had
help
4
solve
months.
this problem, I'm
Oh.
okay with it, committing another day to the week to
Well,
come and meet.
We had 9 meetings, but it wasn't done in 1 month.
No,
We had
4
9
months.
meetings over a period of 6
I
months.
think if we establish the goals and what we're actually trying
Yeah.
to accomplish, then you can put some timeline to it and then have, okay, next month we're gonna establish this next thing. I think there's different categories. I think that talking about all of it, just going all over, it's overwhelming in the sense of being able to get a lot accomplished in one meeting.
Okay.
So-
I think at our next meeting, if
We
we
could do
had
the
meeting,
next
I'm
meeting.
sorry. I think I agree with everything that's been said. I think if we had a meeting that's established where we just did the homeless and housing committee meeting, and as we had that discussion, I think that the objectives of the committee would get focused and worked out.
Okay, so let's let me throw this out here. So the next what would be the regularly scheduled planning commission is the 4th of July. I think it's obvious we're not going to have a planning commission on the 4th. Yeah. And then the next one after that would be July 18th. I will commit to having a draft mission statement and draft, and if we can have the present, your research done, we can present that, and then we can focus in on that discussion.
So the July 18th planning commission meeting would be dedicated to nothing but the
Planning commission meeting.
housing and home committee.
Well, because we also there are some planning commission items that business we need to conduct anyway.
Well, I
Like-
can control the tempo of the meeting. I can move through those things fast.
We could,
How does everybody feel about meeting that Wednesday or Thursday that week?
Well,
Thursday would be good.
I can't
Well,
do Thursday,
and I'm going to say
that
this.
particular week.
In July, the city council is dark. So a Tuesday night would probably be best. I'm just throwing it out there.
What's the 18 minus, what's that one in between?
Hold
Is
on.
that one good?
We have the 11th, the 18th, and the 25th.
I could do the 11th.
Can we do it on the 26th? Because I'm gonna be out of town.
Yes.
Well,
26th.
This is in July.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's a Wednesday.
Oh, well, this thing Thursday is fine
25th.
too, 27th.
All right. So. Okay.
Welcome
So
to committee scheduling.
I know. it's like trying to pay a restaurant bill.
The 18th is still a regular planning commission
Let's
meeting.
see.
Should we just do the
Okay.
18th then, like
Is
how we
the
did
11th,
today?
but if we have something on the 11th, is that going to be enough time for Andrea to get her information together?
You know, I won't be here on the 11th.
Okay,
I won't be here till the 25th
okay.
in the country.
Will you be here on the 25th?
No, I'll be landing on the 25th.
Same.
No, I mean, you'll be here on the 26th.
I can be on the 26th, I'll land on the 25th. if my
Oh, I'm
flight
sorry,
is
yeah,
delayed. So
okay.
basically, that's why I said on the 27th.
Gotcha.
It'll be perfect. Thanks.
All right.
Okay.
James.
Okay. So it sounds like the 18th, we're gonna have a regular planning commission meeting. And is it the 26th?
27.
You want to do it on the 27th?
That's a Thursday. Is that an issue?
I will be back. I will be here.
And what time? Do we, the planning commission meets at 5, we don't have to meet at 5, we can meet earlier.
I can't meet
I'm open
earlier.
that day. I mean, I don't know about other folks who's working.
Well, this is the issue, we got working people on the commission.
My schedule's very, I'm based off appointments, so I usually can move things around however, so, whatever everyone agrees on, I can usually kind of move everything around.
5 o'clock is good. If you push it to 4, I can make an arrangement. But, and we're still talking the 27th.
So we're talking
27th, okay. 27, I'm going to propose 27th at 4:30.
Works for me.
That's fine with me too.
That work?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so that will be dedicated just to the homeless committee.
Just for the homeless committee meeting.
Okay.
Okay.
On July 27th. And then July 18th, we have a regular
Meeting
So
of the
there's
planning
no
commission.
meeting on the 5th,
No meeting on the 5th.
right?
No meeting on the 5th.
Yeah, the 4th doesn't push the meeting to the 5th. It's scheduled for the 18th.
Got it.
Yeah.
Well, it
It
could,
could,
it
but it-
could, but
We don't have any.
we're not ready.
I won't be here. On the 5th.
Well, there you
Okay.
go. We might not have
Anyways.
a forum. Okay.
Keith, anything else that we need at this time?
I think that's
I
it.
think we've got our meeting set up. I think we're locked in.
And then at that time, on the 27th, we'll have
Well, then-
us a draft mission statement and the research center.
Okay.
And then that day we decide what meeting we'll meet in August? This is gonna be fun.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Do I need a motion to adjourn?
Mm-mm. You just
Okay.
adjourn it.
We have nothing else on the agenda. Meeting is adjourned.